الرحيم والحمد لله رب العالمين وصلى الله على سيدنا محمد وعلى آله وصحبه وسلم. Before I begin, we're going to go a little bit out of order today. I'll be giving what's called a bayan, a short English talk. And then MCC has a very important announcement that they're going to make. And then we're going to have a very short Arabic khutbah, and then followed by the prayer, inshallah. Was everyone able to catch that, or should I repeat what I said? Got it. Okay, awesome. Praise be to God who guided us to this, and we would not have been guided had not Allah guided us. Our success is only by God. We grasp on only to God, and we have confidence only in God. In God we trust, and upon God we rely. Praise be to God, we seek His help, we seek His guidance, we seek His forgiveness. We take refuge with God from the evils of ourselves and our misdeeds. Those whom Allah guides cannot be misguided, and those whom Allah misguides shall never find a friend to guide them. I testify that there is no God but Allah, alone and without partner, and I testify that our Master and Prophet Muhammad is His slave and messenger. May Allah send prayers and peace and blessings upon that noble messenger, that kind-hearted man sent as a mercy to the world. Allah asks us in the Quran, Ya ayyuhal insan, ma gharraka bi rabbika al-kareem. He asks us, what has deluded you about your generous Lord? If you ever speak to an atheist about God, a very strange thing will happen. They look out at the world, and then they look back at you, and they're flustered. They're confounded that you could even ask this question. They cannot believe that you believe in God. So an atheist will look out at the world and they say, look at this world, the suffering of this world, the pain, innocent children being killed, criminals and thieves getting away with everything they're doing. People are racist and people are rude. And the arc of history bends towards oppression and violence and hate. So how could you believe in God? And so the atheist looks out at the world and they see a proof against God. But the theist, the person that believes in God, and especially the monotheist, the person that believes in one God, and particularly the Muslim who believes in Allah, they look at the world and they can't help but see a proof of God. And yes, it's true, children die. But there are people of God that work to put an end to that, and those children go straight to paradise. And yes, it is true, many criminals will live unpunished in this world, but their souls are withering away. And in the afterlife, they will surely not get away. So this whole world is like a tapestry. You can zoom in and you can focus on one single thread, and you might wonder, wow, that is a really ugly color. But if you step back and see the entire tapestry, then you marvel and you cannot find a single fault. And this is what Allah tells us to do. He tells us, مَا تَرَى فِي خَلْقِ الرَّحْمَنِ مِنْ تَفَاوَتٍ فَارْجِعِ الْبَصَرَ هَلْ تَرَى مِنْ فُتُورٍ. You will see no incongruence in the creation of the merciful. So turn back your gaze. Do you see any fault? ثُمَّ ارْجِعِ الْبَصَرَ كَرَّتَيْنِ. Then look again and again. يَنْقَلِبْ إِلَيْكَ الْبَصْرُ خَاسِئًا وَهُوَ حَسِيرٌ. Your sight will only return back to you humbled and weary. So why is it, we should ask then, why is it that when the atheist looks out at the world, they do not see God? And the reason that they do not see God is because they have already made the choice not to believe. They do not see God because they do not want to believe. Allah tells us in the Hadith Qudsi, أَنَا عِنْدَ ظَنِّ عَبْدِ بِي, I am as my servant thinks I am. So if you truly believe that God exists, if you truly believe that God is present in the world, then when you look out into this world, you will see God. You will see signs of His presence. You will see signs of His care and His signs of His wisdom. But if you don't believe that God is here, if you don't believe that God exists, if you're very completely closed off yourself to that idea because of your notions internally of what's right and what's wrong and what God should do and what God should not do and what's fair and what's proper, because you see suffering and you think, no God would do this, or because you sin and you feel guilt for that sin, and so you tell yourself, I shouldn't feel this guilt. And then you've primed yourself not to see God. No matter how much you look, you've primed yourself that you don't want to believe in God because you don't want to feel that guilt. And so you've blinded yourself. And this is how Allah has created us. This is why Ibn Ata'illah, in one of his famous aphorisms, he says, مَا قَادَكَ شَيْءٌ مِثْلُ الْوَهَمِ. Nothing will lead you on like false belief. So if we're deluded about the nature of this world, about who God is, about who we are, if we're deluded about all of these things, then we will not be able to see reality, and we will not be able to act accordingly with the truth. We will be lost. For example, many people believe in this sort of idea of the prosperity gospel. If you're prosperous, then God must be pleased with you. But if you have difficulties in your life, then God must not be pleased with you. That is a punishment from God, and that's the only thing it can be. But Allah tells us in the Quran, فَأَمَّا الْإِنسَانُ إِذَا مَبْتَلَاهُ رَبُّهُ فَأَكْرَمَهُ وَنَعَّمَهُ فَيَقُولُ رَبِّي أَكْرَمَنِ وَأَمَّا إِذَا مَبْتَلَاهُ فَقَدَرَ عَلَيْهِ رِزْقَهُ فَيَقُولُ رَبِّي أَهَانَنِ. As for man, when his Lord tries him by being generous and by giving him blessings, he says, my Lord has ennobled me. But when Allah tries him and restricts him, He restricts his provision, then mankind says, my Lord has debased me. But then Allah immediately attacks that notion. He says, Kalla, nay. Allah has not ennobled you by giving something to you. And He has not debased you. He has not humiliated you by taking something away from you. But rather, Allah is telling us in this ayah exactly what He is doing. He's testing us. He's testing our response. He's testing whether we are awake and we are alert and we are discerning of what is going on in this world, and therefore we are able to react to the situation that Allah has placed us in. Or are we asleep and heedless and deluded, and we cannot react in the way that Allah asks us to react? سَنَسْتَدْرِجُهُمْ مِنْ حَيْثُ لَا يَعْلَمُونَ. Allah tells us, we shall slowly lead them astray from whence they do not realize. فَلَا يَأْمَنُ مَكْرَ اللَّهِ إِلَّا الْقَوْمُ الْخَاسِرُونَ. So none should feel safe from the plot of Allah except a losing people. So we must be awake. We must be alert. We must not accept things at face value, not even what we tell ourselves. We cannot settle and suddenly become complacent. And this is because we have four enemies. We have four enemies in this life. The dunya is our enemy. Shaitan is our enemy. The nafs is our enemy. And desire is our enemy. So Shaitan will come to you and he will lie. And he will whisper untruths in your ear, but those lies will sound like they're true. So Shaitan will come to you and he will tell you, God is merciful, and we hope for His mercy. And that is absolutely true. But if we forget that God is also vengeful, and God also punishes, that could lead us to a listlessness and false hopes. We might listen to that voice and stop worshiping altogether because of our hope, because of that false hope. And that is what Shaitan wants. And that is a delusion. And the dunya will come to you and it will lie to you. And it will make itself out to be the entirety of reality. That the physical world is the only world. That the pleasures of this life are the only pleasures to be enjoyed. That this world is somehow, some way eternal. And it created itself. And it governs itself. And if we don't stop and question that, then we will fall for it. We will become enchanted by the pleasures of this world, and we will forget that this world had an origin in God, and forget anything outside of this world entirely. And your desires will come to you, and they will also lie to you, and they will tell you there's nothing better than achieving those desires. And those desires can only be achieved here and now, and never at any other place or time. And therefore, you should cast aside everything that distracts you from those desires. Because God would not have created those desires in you, right, if He didn't expect you to use them. And then your nafs will come to you, and your nafs will also lie to you, your lower soul, and it will tell you you are great. You are virtuous. You can't learn from other people because you're already the best that you'll ever be. Your opinions are the right opinions. And you shouldn't listen to other people when they disagree with you. And that you're generous and that you're on the right path. And that you can do whatever you want because Allah loves you and Allah will forgive you. And if you don't stop, if you don't literally stop those thoughts in your head, then you will fall for those thoughts. Even if you verbally deny it, your actions will speak otherwise. And these are all delusions. And that is the goal of those four enemies. That we do not live a life of truth. That we do not live a life of sincerity. That we do not acknowledge reality as it truly is and our place in it. And to be alert and to be awake, to use taqwa, this mindful wariness, as a shield, to constantly be on guard against these enemies, to question ourselves and what our souls are telling us, and the very thoughts that are passing through our mind. To do all of these things is to be courageous. These are very difficult things. They become easier over time, of course, just like practicing anything. But this is a very lofty endeavor. And one of the key virtues of being Muslim is futuwa. It's virtue, courage, chivalry, virility. And while a lot of this has associations with physical strength and martial prowess, true virtue is in self-regulation, in not taking the easy path, but constantly remaining alert. And one of the definitions of futuwa begins with as-sidqu ma'al haq, sincerity with al-haq, which can mean sincerity with Allah, but it can also be read as being something much broader, as being sincere to reality. In other words, recognizing reality for what it is and acting in accordance with that. So what is it then that we can do to become a fata, a person of strength and a person of virtue? The first thing that we should do is to test ourselves. Pick any claim that you make about yourself and really think about it. So perhaps you think, I'm really smart and I'm really intelligent. Or perhaps you think, I'm a really generous person. Or maybe for some of us we think, well, I don't make any claims. I don't think much of myself. I don't think very highly of myself. That's a claim as well. Then test that claim. If you're really so smart, then when you believe some opinion about the religion or about law or politics or whatever opinion you might have, then ask yourself, have I really read the other side? Have I read third opinions? Have I read critiques? Do I know how to respond to those critiques? And if you have not, then think about why not. What belief is it that you hold that has led you to be so confident? Or if you say that you're generous, then ask yourself, what have I given up because of my generosity? Do I only give in public? Do I only give to people who are close to me? Would I ever consider giving to someone who disagrees with me or that has harmed me? Or if you say that you don't think very highly of yourself and therefore you can't make claims, ask yourself, is that actually true? Or is this some sort of arrogance and I'm making a claim to humbleness and humility? Or is it some sort of laziness or fear so you are unwilling or unable to really examine your own faults and your own flaws? What is going on here? This is an exercise that we should all be doing. Take 1 week and spend some time reflecting on it and on yourself. And of course, it doesn't have to just be with your own nafs. But this sort of reflection is most important with our own selves, and that is what we should be focusing on. And this same alertness should be present in every aspect of our lives. If a claim is made to us, then we should not just bow down to it. We should examine it. Examine the truth of that claim. And that's not to say that we should become skeptics, right? To be a skeptic is to doubt that we can even know the truth. And a skeptic will often reduce things to materiality, and that's it. But we are a people of knowledge. Islam is distinguished as a religion, as a people, as a civilization, by nothing greater than the pursuit of knowledge. This was the entire ethos of the Islamic civilization. And this is because Muslims desire above all else to seek the truth, al-haq, Allah. And we want to know the world as Allah made it, because the world is a reflection of Him, because through it we will know Allah better. And the purpose of our existence is liya'budun, to worship God. As Ibn Abbas comments on this, to know God, because knowledge of God informs and is the most fundamental root of worship, and perfecting that worship. You cannot worship unless you know. And so we're not a heedless people. Allah tells us, وَلَقَدْ ذَرَأْنَا لِجَهَنَّمَ كَثِيرًا مِنَ الْجِنِّ وَالْإِنسِ لَهُمْ قُلُوبٌ لَا يَفْقَهُونَ بِهَا وَلَهُمْ أَعْيُنٌ لَا يُبْصِرُونَ بِهَا وَلَهُمْ آذَانٌ لَا يَسْمَعُونَ بِهَا أُولَٰئِكَ كَالْأَنْعَامِ بَلْ هُمْ أَضَلُّ أُولَٰئِكَ هُمُ الْغَافِلُونَ. We have made for the fire many jinn and humans. They had hearts which they did not use to understand, and eyes which they did not use to see, and ears which they did not use to hear. They are like cattle, but nay, they are even more astray than cattle. They are the heedless. So Allah has given us the tools to know reality. He has given us the ability to be sincere to Him by seeking the truth, which is by critically assessing the truth of ourselves, the truth of the world, the truth of God. And if we do that, then we must come to the inescapable conclusion that we must submit to God. That is our place. And our scholars tell us that shukr, that gratefulness, in reality is to use what God gives as God intended it to be used, for His pleasure. The opposite of shukr is kufr, ingratitude, which also means disbelief. And that is to not use what God gives us in the way that pleases Allah. So let us be among the grateful and among the courageous and among those with futuwah and strength and who are alert and awake. We ask Allah to grace us with that which He loves and is pleased with. And with that, I'll turn it over for the announcement.